It's so much worse than we knew or thought. The story of corrupt DOJ official, ex-foreign spies working together literally to stop Donald Trump from becoming president, and then after his election to destroy him. We have more major breaking news surrounding Bruce Ohr, Christopher Steele, and now Steele's boss, Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson. Now, The Hill's John Solomon has now uncovered additional disturbing communications, and for the first time, we have them. Handwritten notes from Bruce Ohr detailing how he coordinated with Clinton's team of op researchers, all in the lead up to the election. We need to get to the bottom of it. We have new details surrounding just how deep state Christopher Steele's Russian ties are. By the way, Robert Mueller, please tune in. We have found more actual real Russia collusion that you might want to investigate if you care about truth and equal justice under the law. Also tonight, we will bring you the unusual case of what looks like a Chinese spy and Senator Dianne Feinstein. It fits perfectly and highlights our two-tiered system of justice. This went on for over 20 years. We'll explain coming up. And don't expect, by the way, to hear any of this over at Conspiracy TV MSNBC, where their top left of Mao, their words, conspiracy theorist Rachel Maddow is pushing and busy pushing more bizarre anti-Trump conspiracy theories and lies. This is 24/7. Tom Brokaw, pay attention. This is your NBC News. And last night's show, well, she broke another bombshell report because there's a secret recording from the House Intel Committee Chairman, Devin Nunes, where he warned about the consequences if Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats take back the House in November. The horror. He told the truth. And meanwhile, over at fake news CNN, yes, so-called reporter, BS artist Jim Acosta is basking in the anti-Trump limelight and appeared on Stephen Colbert's show last night. We'll show you the worst of the worst. Buckle up. Time for an important breaking news opening monologue. All right, tonight, once again, John Solomon has a major breaking report. This time, he's now exposing how Fusion GPS literally coordinated with Obama's Justice Department, all in the lead up to the 2016 election. Now, remember, Fusion GPS was the consulting firm. It was hired by the DNC and the Clinton campaign. They're the ones that dug up the dirt on then candidate Trump that was full of Russian lies. And according to now newly unearthed handwritten notes that we now have, senior Justice Department official Bruce Ohr, he knew about Glenn Simpson's effort to leak the dirty dossier to the press prior to the election. He wrote, quote, "It was Glenn's Hail Mary attempt." Hail Mary attempt, of course, to defeat Trump with Hillary bought and paid for Russian lies. And it gets worse. Now, Bruce Ohr also wrote that Glenn Simpson gave him a memory stick during a discreet meeting at a coffee shop. By the way, where's that stick? Is it acid washed? Did they beat it up with a hammer? Now, to put this simply, this new clear evidence is showing Hillary Clinton's op research team was working with the Department of Justice in the Obama years to malign an opposition party candidate, and Bruce Ohr, Barack Obama's number 4 at the DOJ, represented Team Clinton's efforts to use your government as a weapon against the Trump campaign. And as we speak, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Bob Goodlatte, he is now preparing subpoenas for Bruce Ohr, Nellie Ohr, and Glenn Simpson. And meanwhile, we're also learning new details about Christopher Steele and his shady ties to a Russian oligarch. Byron York uncovered emails from 2016 showing that Christopher Steele was, in fact, lobbying on behalf of a Russia aluminum tycoon, oh, guess what, with close ties to Vladimir Putin. Robert Mueller, Jeff Sessions, where are you people? And Steele even pressed Bruce Ohr to help rectify this Russian oligarch's U.S. visa status after he was already banned from the United States. And Steele even pressed Bruce Ohr to help rectify the oligarch status. And after he was banned, guess what? He got to come back. So here what we have is an ex-foreign spy working for a Putin-linked oligarch, gets him into the United States after being banned by using his connection, the number 4 guy at the DOJ, during an election where Steele, being paid by Hillary and the DNC, they literally are using Russian lies and propaganda. They create the research against the president. Then you have Fusion GPS. Then you have Christopher Steele disseminating that information to influence the American people what are outright lies, because this is their Hail Mary pass. Robert Mueller, you have no interest in investigating this? You don't think that's part of your mandate? But Paul Manafort's 2005 taxes that had nothing to do with the campaign, Russia, Trump, or the election, that's in your mandate? This is why we on this show, this is why the president rightly is calling this a witch hunt. This is a politically motivated prosecution of a man they never wanted to be president. They were going to stop him. And after every dirty trick that they used to defeat Donald Trump, and it failed, well, then they tried to destroy the president. Why? Because you voted for him. I could go on and on, but I think Rudy Giuliani said it best last night right here on this program. Take a look.
The reality is, the real story here is not that this case isn't going to fizzle. It's going to blow up on them. The real question is what we talked about before. There's a lot more to what they did that nobody knows about yet.
I know some of it.
A lot more to the obstruction of justice, to the collusion, to the fake dossier.
Oh, I know a lot.
Trying to bring Steele back in after he was completely discredited.
And then feed it to Mueller.
Yeah. And Mueller is going to have a lot to answer for.
Yes, he does, without a doubt. This witch hunt is the pinnacle of a two-tiered system of justice alive and well in this country, the United States of America. Hillary Clinton commits multiple, obvious, serious felonies. We've said it a million times. Mishandling, top secret, intel on a private server, deleting it, acid washing it, busting up devices with hammers, obstructing justice. She got a get-out-of-jail-free card from her friends who wrote an exoneration before investigation, Comey, Strzok, and others. And then you have Shifty Schiff. Remember, we played it? He colluded on tape, conspired on tape with a Russian to get dirt on Donald Trump. Robert Mueller, where are you? Meanwhile, President Trump, all his allies, they're slammed with the full force weight of the FBI and the DOJ based on what is Clinton bought and paid for, Russian lies put together by a spy who's friends with a Russian oligarch and working on his behalf to get him into the country after he's been kicked out. Paul Manafort, oh, big case, trial of the century, facing life in prison over a 2005 tax case on bank and tax charges that had nothing to do with Trump, Russia, or the campaign. Lieutenant General Flynn coerced into a plea deal after exculpatory evidence was withheld, and then he has to sell his house because he can't afford to pay for his defense. And don't forget about even Carter Page, 2016. The FBI thought he was a Russian spy. And what did they do? They used Steele, friend of the Russian oligarch, his dirty dossier that even he doesn't stand by. He doesn't even think it's true. Misleading 4 separate FISA judges to spy on a Trump campaign associate. This is all happening. You can't make this up in a spy novel. But was President Trump, was he ever notified by our federal government that a possible spy might have infiltrated his campaign so he could help our government, help the FBI? Not a chance. Meanwhile, a very different story plays out if you're a Democrat by the name of Senator Dianne Feinstein. Look at the shocking revelations. 2013, Feinstein notified by the FBI. One of her top aides is investigated as a Chinese spy. In other words, the FBI sought to protect Feinstein, not Trump, perhaps because the highest levels of the FBI are wrought with anti-Trump corrupt bias and trying to take down the candidate, stop him with an insurance policy if, God forbid, he does win. Not Senator Feinstein. Look, night after night on this program, we are breaking important news, investigative reporting. I've said many times we're peeling back the layers of corruption, the biggest abuse of power in our country's history at the highest levels of our government. Now, that's not the case in the rest of the news media. Let's take, for example, Conspiracy TV, MSNBC. You're going to love this tape. Now, this is not the case. They're more interested in pushing salacious rumors, lies, accusations. Tom Brokaw, you spent your entire career. This is your NBC News. And nowhere is this more true than their chief conspiracy theorist, Rachel Maddow. Last night, up to her old tricks, literally making something out of nothing, whipping these left-wing viewers into a frenzy over a secret recording of the House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, where he warned a room full of donors that if Republicans lose, all deep state investigations will be halted and Democrats will try to impeach Trump. We've been saying this literally every night on this program. They also, by the way, want open borders to eliminate ICE, keep Obamacare, and they want the crumbs back. Now, of course, making a big deal out of nothing, well, that's kind of their M.O. over there at fake news MSNBC. We can't forget about their big scoop. Remember, they got one page of Donald Trump's 2005 tax return for 45 minutes. We got it. Here it is. It's here. And what did we discover? He paid millions and millions and millions of dollars in taxes. And then, of course, there's Rachel's favorite conspiracy, that Trump is an agent of Russia. I'm not making this up. Watch.
And if the president did that today, because he has some reason to serve that other country rather than our own, then a lot that has previously been inexplicable is now explicable.
Is our president subordinate to a foreign power?
Yeah.
Does our president answer to a foreign government and a foreign leader? The worst case scenario that the president is a foreign agent suddenly feels very palpable.
What would change the world is if, Russia was interfering in the election and they weren't doing it on their own and he was in on it.
I mean, this guy is supposedly somebody who works at the Russian central bank. Why did the FSB give him a medal for his work? A medal of appreciation right after Donald Trump clinched the Republican nomination for president.
He's a foreign agent. That's why he's being so tough on Putin, like Obama wasn't and Clinton wasn't. Now, if you think her fake, her overhype, so-called scoops, flat-out conspiracy theories, and there, well, think again. Take a look at this little wacky trip down conspiracy lane. I think you'll like it.
Of course, Trump picked as his Secretary of State, not Mitt Romney, but out of nowhere, the Exxon CEO, Rex Tillerson, to whom Vladimir Putin had personally awarded the Russian Order of Friendship. Tillerson is someone who Trump had never met before the presidential election. He'd never had any dealings with. Where did he come up with that as a choice for his Secretary of State? The perception that the president may have ordered these strikes, in part because of scandal, will affect the impact and the effectiveness of these military strikes. Unavoidably.
They pulled their troops out starting Friday, September 29th, which would be the Friday after the Trump administration made this baffling decision to insult and harm our closest military ally in that region. Those troops from Chad got pulled out the 29th. Well, right after that, that's when 4 U.S. Army soldiers got attacked by a large contingent of ISIS fighters in Niger.
Venezuelans are enraged anew by this brand new FEC filing from the White House.
Okay, if you think fake news couldn't get any worse, any more dramatic, any more self-involved, you're forgetting about CNN's most outspoken Trump hater. That's right, B.S. Jim Acosta. Now, he's supposed to be an unbiased White House correspondent, but as we've shown you many times, all too often, he uses his hatred, his contempt, his left-wing agenda for President Trump because he's launching himself into a national spotlight. He's becoming a star. Last night, no exception. He tweeted out this picture of himself. Look deeply into his own eyes just before appearing on The Late Show with fellow Trump hater Stephen Colbert. Take a look.
These folks are focused on the coverage of the president's behavior more so than they are the president's behavior. And to me, I think that the president's behavior is more newsworthy than our coverage. But a lot of these folks out there, they're getting their sense of what we do twisted and warped by some people out there who just want to do the president's bidding.
Do you worry that the president points at y'all so much and that there's a natural need to respond as a human being that you end up being the story when that's not really the goal of your journalism?
Right, and we're not supposed to be the story. That's not why I'm out there. I get accused of that from time to time, and my attitude is, listen, I'm allowed to care about this country just as much as anybody else.
When you're corrupt, when you lie, when you're nothing but an extension of the Democratic Party, yeah, you're going to get called out. By the way, that picture was so bizarre. And Acosta's constant flirtation with fame over actual journalism is so obvious that even some of his peers in the mainstream media, they're beginning to notice. On Tuesday, The Atlantic referred to Acosta's conduct as a dangerous brand of performance journalism. Meanwhile, frequent guests on fake news CNN, conspiracy TV, MSNBC, filmmaker Michael Moore is coming out with a new documentary. He refers to Trump as the last president of the United States. It's going to be a coup. It's going to be bad. Well, it's the perfect example of pre-election left-wing lunacy.
How the did this happen?
The American dream is dead. Stop resisting.
The president's powers here are beyond question.
Ladies and gentlemen, the last president of the United States.
Scary music, the worst picture you can find, all the special effects. The president's success is really starting to throw these people over the ledge. So, by the way, Michael Moore, if you're watching, cover your eyes. You're not going to like what I'm about to show. Pew Research Center. Trump voters overwhelmingly approve of their choice for president. We got a lot of breaking news. Joining us now, 2 weeks in a row now, the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russian Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. From the Hill, John Solomon, and investigative reporter, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. John, let's start with these new developments tonight. I have copies, but I'm not allowed to show them, am I?
Well, listen, I have some of these handwritten notes, and unlike BuzzFeed and other organizations that let unredacted information out without checking into it, I don't think it's responsible to put all the handwritten notes out until we check the information out.
And we know the handwritten notes were written by, too?
Bruce Orr, the Justice Department official, Bruce Orr. That's what Congress has been told. And these notes are from a December 11th meeting. Let me set the table. It's 1 month after Donald Trump has won the election. It's 1 month after Christopher Steele, the opposition researcher, British intelligence agent, has been fired by the FBI. The Democrats are still in shock. I assume Lisa Page and Stroker still sorting through their feelings after the election. And all of a sudden, Bruce Orr goes to a coffee shop in Washington and he meets Glenn Simpson. That's Christopher Steele's boss, the owner of Fusion GPS, the Clinton research firm. And he gets a memory card, a thumb drive of documents coming to Bruce Orr. Bruce Orr is not in the counterintelligence team. He's not an FBI counterintelligence person. And in fact, his wife worked for Fusion GPS, so he might have a conflict of interest under the Justice Department rules.
Or does?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's for lawyers to decide, but clearly it's an issue that's been flagged, right? And he gets this, and he gets a series of admissions that he writes down in his notes, and I think these are so important. I'll just go through them quickly. One, Simpson acknowledged he encouraged Steele to leak a story just before the election as a Hail Mary attempt, obviously to throw the election. Now remember, Glenn Simpson testified he only pursued this information because he thought it was good citizenship. It wasn't about politics, it was about being a good citizen. Here you see him telling his friend who takes a note, it's about elections. Here's another one. He doesn't have any sources in Moscow where this alleged plot is. It's an intelligence agent who's now living in the United States. That's a red flag for all the intelligence people I talk to. Sounds like compromise, not a real intelligence source. And he goes on, he talks about this incredible theory he has, which is really there were 3 spies in the Trump campaign. First it was Manafort, he got booted. Then it was Carter Page, he got booted. So then Michael Cohen must have been the third link because, well, he's married to someone who knows somebody in Russia. And he puts all this down, and Orr's taking it, and 2 days later, Orr takes it out, and he runs it over to the FBI, and he does an interview and tells them what it is. And why is this important? The FBI fired Christopher Steele and said it was going to not take any more information from this political opposition research operation, but Bruce Orr is the guy walking it in the door after the firing. It has to concern people at the FISA court, has to concern professional intelligence people like I talked to today who looked at these notes and said, this is the worst form of intelligence gathering we've ever seen.
It's called corruption. Sarah, you're working on a couple of stories yourself. You want to add to all of this?
Well, I think John laid it out perfectly when he talks about what happened with Bruce Orr. The bigger question here, I think, after all of this information has been released is who are authorized Bruce Orr at the Department of Justice to be the back channel for the FBI, Sean? And another question is, who at the FBI was authorizing this? It had to have been McCabe. Could it have been McCabe? Could it have been somebody above McCabe, like Comey, to use Bruce Orr as the back channel for Christopher Steele? They knew he had been fired. He had violated their protocol. He had violated all of the rules. He had been dismissed, but they were still using him. I think these are some of the biggest questions. And John's right, because the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, that's something that I've been looking at. They will be very, and they are very concerned about what happened, because this affects the ability to trust the Bureau, the ability to trust those people in counterintelligence that are giving them the information. This is supposed to be factual. They are supposed to have facts. They attributed everything in that FISC. If you read the application, what's been released, they say this is absolute fact. We know Carter Page is a spy. He's working with the Russians. We know this. We know that.
Why isn't he arrested?
And that's right. Why isn't he arrested? And one more quick point. They left out all the information on Bruce Orr out of that application. They did not inform the FISC court of what was going on. And that's the biggest problem here.
All right, so Russian lies get the. I want to go into all this. There's so much to unpeel here. You got the FISA court lied to on multiple levels. There's a fraud committed to the court. Then you got Strzok and Page, and of course Comey writes the exoneration. But you got them saying we're going to stop them, and they have an insurance policy. Then you got Glenn Simpson here. Now he wants to throw a Hail Mary with, again, unverified Steele dossier. Steele doesn't even stand. He doesn't even stand by his own dossier when under oath. But now we got an oligarch from Russia kicked out of the country. You got Orr, Steele talking about bringing him back in and spreading misinformation, lying to the American people to sway an election, and then lie to a FISA court, get into the Trump campaign, and then using the information after to take down the president after he beats all of this crap.
Historic, rampant corruption by the FBI and the Department of Justice. Robert Mueller should do the right thing, end his investigation, and make an announcement that the accusations of Trump-Russia collusion were nothing more than a hoax. Every day, thanks to John, Sarah, and others, there are new revelations that the evidence against Trump was simply invented. It was conjured out of thin air. There was never any real evidence.
What about all these Russian connections?
The FBI,
and then Adam Schiff talking to a Russian.
The FBI knew that this was fake. They knew that Steele was a liar.
Very important.
No. But Comey and his Confederates knew that it wasn't real. They didn't care. They knew that Steele was a liar. They fired him for it, and yet they kept using him even after Trump was elected and inaugurated. There was never any plausible evidence.
Real quick, because we got to run, guys. We're up on the clock.
I was just going to say on Sean, and they used a foreign spy. If you want to see any connections, look at the connections between the Democratic Party, Russia, and a British spy. Those are the connections.
All right, I have your articles on Hannity.com. You've got to read it in detail. Great reporting, all three of you. Thank you. When we come back, Ed Henry has an explosive report. Joe DeGenevieve.